So, welcome to Talking 360. I'm Tony Scott, and with me is Kiva Robinson, who has written a book called The Quiet Rage. When you see the title, The Quiet Rage, you think maybe she got mad at something. Maybe it was something that an anger that was in her that she took out and she, killed 47 people. No, it wasn't. That's not it at all. Kiva is a pastor, and she was preaching, praying, and prophesizing in the pulpit. Now, while this was going on in Kiva's life, there was also a life of men, money, and sex. And Kiva joins me here on Talking 360. Kiva, how are you?
I am great, Tony. Thank you for having me on tonight. This is an awesome platform. I think what you're doing is just outstanding, and I love you for it.
Thank you so much. But let's get to the book, though, because man, I was like, ooh, man. So, do you think most people have a quiet rage inside of them?
I do. Something always happens in somebody's life that alters the way they perceive things, the way they look at things, the way they respond to things. And so that's the beginning of your storm. And because we don't realize that that thing is festering in us, it just keeps growing. And before you know it, it becomes like this huge, just raging of a storm inside of you. And you can't figure out why you keep making the same mistakes over and over again and attracting the same people over and over again. And that's because there's a storm inside of you that you need to be healed from.
But while you're a pastor and doing all the pastorly duties that a pastor does, and talking to your congregation and all that, how is it that you can have that life and also have this other life where men, money, and sex are part of what you've become? How were you able to do both at the same time? Did you literally have to become someone else?
I did. I had to mask it. I had an alter ego. Her name is Michelle. Everybody that knows Michelle is part of that dark, hidden past that I had. And so it was like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde game that I had to play when I was at church or in front of, those church people, as we say, that I was pastor or prophetess Kiva Robinson. But then when I got home and I was masturbating or, watching pornography or calling sex lines, I was Michelle. And I felt that I needed that to express myself because I couldn't express myself verbally because I didn't feel that anyone would understand it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I lived this double life.
So, what was the beginning for you in this life? I mean, what was the thing that got you on this path? Did you fall in love with a man? Did you? I mean, what? And you're allowed to fall in love with a man. Even as a pastor, you can fall in love with a man. I mean, but what was it that put you on this path?
At the age of 12, I was raped by a family friend of ours. I was staying with my grandmother, and she worked nights, and so she entrusted our upstairs neighbors, to kind of keep an eye on me while I was downstairs at night by myself. And back in those days, people basements were connected, so if you come down their back steps and our back steps, you were in the same basement. So it's just a matter of them coming up our basic steps to be able to get into my room. But it actually happened. They were throwing a party, and of course I snuck to the party, me and my cousin. And before you know it, alcohol got involved, and he was like, "It's time for you to grow up. It's time for you to pay the piper." And so that rate really altered how I looked at men and how I looked at life. But I had promised myself that no one will be able to control me that way. And so I'll give it away before I let you take it away. And that's how I lived for 22 years.
So, in those 22 years, I mean, how many actual relationships with men did you have that were unhealthy?
Oh, I've had three marriages. I've had countless sugar daddies, and I've had countless one night stands. So I couldn't even begin to tell you. I couldn't put a number to it, Tony.
So,
I've
but
never, let me say it like this, I've never had a healthy relationship with a man.
do you think you ever will?
Um, at this point in my life, I don't. I asked God to allow me to be able to sustain in life without that part of my life.
Hmm.
I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2005. And I was married at that time to my third husband. And when the doctor called him and told him that I was in the hospital, his words to them were that he didn't get married, that he didn't have time for a sickly wife, and to call my mother. And that broke the camel's back. So I just asked God, allow me to sustain in life without even being affiliated with that part of life.
Kiva Robinson's book is called The Quiet Rage, and I'm talking to her right now, talking 360. These relationships, though, the marriages, in some of your marriages, there was domestic violence.
Yes.
So why did you stay in these
I thought I was in
situations?
love.
Hmm.
I thought I was in love. I thought it was the right thing to do. You're supposed to get married and have kids and stand by your man. And, even though tough times come, you still stick there because eventually it's going to be okay. And I inherited that I had inherited that attribute, that characteristic, because I saw, how long my mom and dad had been married and other women around that had been married. And even though their marriages may have not been what we would say all blissful, but they stayed
Hmm.
and they worked it out. And so I thought that that was what I was supposed to do, that was supposed to be my story. And so I stayed.
So these situations that you speak about in the book, here we are in 2013. Are you healed from those situations? Are you healed from what you went through completely?
I am walking in it, Tony. It's a process. You just don't get up one day and say, okay, I joined church and now I'm fully healed
Hmm.
and ta-da, I'm this new person. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
And I don't understand why there are pastors and leaders that say that once you come to God, everything is going to be okay. Because that's just not the truth. And so it's a process that I go through. Still to this day, I'm still walking towards that healing place. I don't think that we can really physically be ultimately healed and it never affects us again until we're living on the other side.
So how did you explain this to the congregation when it came out?
Hmm. I have a great group of men and women of God in ministry. I told them I'm very transparent, Tony, when I preach, when somebody invites me to come and preach, when I am ministering anywhere I go. I'm a transparent preacher. And that has been what people have enjoyed being where I go. So my members, the flock, the congregants that were or that are up under me, they know my story. And so no one else can come and tell them something about Pastor Kiva that they haven't already heard from Pastor Kiva. And I accept them and they accepted me.
So what was your inspiration for writing? Was it to help other women who may have gone down this path? Was it just to release this from your soul? I mean, what was the inspiration for the book?
It was two-part. I would be, after service meeting different women, and they would tell me how they wish that they could, talk to somebody about what they were going through, and they would share with me some of their secrets about how they were being treated in their marriages, and how their husbands and things of that nature were, treating them, and it was like an outrage, and I was like, okay, God, there has to be someone that's going to come out and say it's okay to talk about this thing and be real about it. But because church make it seem as though you have to be this whole healed person, and that's not what the church was for. God created the church for those of us that are sick and that was lost and are hurting and are broken. That's who He came for. And so not only just to heal myself, but to also be a voice and an outlet for women everywhere. And so now I travel and I do ministry and I talk to women. I do what we call my real, raw, and true women rap sessions. and we talk about any topic, and I leave it for 16 and older, and I leave it strictly for women, and we talk about some risque topics, but it be things that they needed to talk out loud to get it out of their head and out of their heart, and now that it's out, they can begin their healing process, and so it's been beneficial.
Pastor Kiva Robinson's book is called The Quiet Rage, and we'll put links in the show notes down below as to where you can get this book. Is there a difference between preaching versus being an author?
Absolutely. Being an author, you have the freedom to use whatever words, however many words, and however you want to express that thing. Being a preacher, especially if you're not inside your own home and you're preaching out abroad, there are rules and regulations that everybody has in their ministry. Some people don't want you wearing pants in the pulpit, and so everything has a rule and a regulation. So being an author is very liberating, very much freedom. It allows you to really get into the core of things.
You talk about being transparent as a pastor, and in writing this book, you were really transparent.
Yes.
How was it hard being? I mean, there's being transparent, and then there's being Kiva parent. You know what I'm saying? It's like because you were pretty transparent in this book. Was that tough in any way at all? I mean, you put it out there, what you did, what you were, what you went through. All this, was it hard to do?
It was, but I was writing to get free. And so, in order to write to get free, you have to be honest. And I had to be honest and own up to what I was doing. I had to tell how when I leave Bible study, I was going home and, masturbating or watching a pornography movie. I had to tell, how that every day when I got up for work, that I had to masturbate. And when I got home to go to sleep, that I had to masturbate. I had to tell the domestic violence and, the men that cheated on me. I had to tell those things because I needed to be free of those things. And I had carried those things for so long, Tony. It was just time.
But I mean, there's nothing really wrong with masturbation.
Mm-hmm. Some say it's not.
Well, I mean, you're not. I mean, it's not like you're cheating or anything. I mean.
Right. Well, it depends on your partner. Your partner might say you're cheating, Tony.
Well, that is true. I hadn't thought about it like that, but that is true. What has been the feedback from, like, say, the congregation about the book?
The congregation, of course, has been supportive. They have been very open and honest about their feelings. They have been around when people have given me their reviews of it, and they have stepped up to defend me. They have stepped up to, honor what I have done, and they have showed nothing but respect. Of course, from those who are not in my congregation, it's been a mixed emotions. Normally from the men who have gotten the book, they say that it upset them as a man to know that another man could treat a woman as such. And then from the women, it angered them or made them sad because they felt as though, why is it that we as women have to go through so much or allow ourselves to go through so much and not put a stop to it sooner than we do. So it's been mixed reviews. It's been, I take my good with my bad. It's empowered me. It's given me the strength to write my second book that I'm currently writing.
I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but I did want to get this question in, and that question is this. Did Michelle have a wardrobe she wore when she went out?
Yeah.
Okay, she did. So was Kiva ever recognized as Michelle somewhere? Did those lines ever cross? Did they ever blur?
Never.
Never.
Never. Kiva was this. I was in the medical profession before I went full-time ministry. So Kiva was this professional. I wore business suits.
No, that part I understand. But I mean, did anybody, while you were out as Michelle, did anybody who knew you as Kiva ever see you?
No.
No, really?
No, because I frequented places that Kiva wouldn't frequent. So I had two sets of social circles.
Well, you're living two lives.
Yeah, that social circle for Michelle was your more naughty more, voyeurism people. They
Hmm.
were the people that was like, hey, the club, the club people, and the men that you know wanted just to have a woman just for a couple of hours. And so I frequented places that were made just right for Michelle.
I got you. Now tell me about the sequel to The Quiet Rage.
Oh my God, the sequel. Can I tell you, I'm still living it. I thought I was going to write directly after this book, but I haven't. I've actually started on another story that I'm writing in regards to a preacher's wife. But the sequel, I'm still living it. I start from the point of when I moved into pastoralship for ministry and where I'm at now. And it's still not all peaches and creams.
Hmm.
It's still not a book of, all the glorious and wonderful things. It still gives you the dirt.
Hmm.
I have a conference that I'm doing next year called Dirt to Diva. And so that book is going to be promoted with that conference. And it's really from Dirt to Diva. And so I'm still going through the trials
So
to
we're
get
talking with
there.
Pastor Robinson, Pastor Kiva Robinson. Her book is called The Quiet Rage on Talking 360. Now you talk about conferences and things like that. If people want you to come, maybe set up a book signing or have you at a seminar or a conference, how do they contact you?
They can contact me by email at keva787 at gmail.com, or they can contact me on my website at kevarobinson.org, or I'm on Facebook as Prophet Kiva Williams, and I'm on Twitter as Black Author. Any one of those ways, you can definitely contact me.
Wow. This has been a very interesting conversation with you, Pastor Kiva Robinson, because I don't normally think about, I mean, you hear about it, about a pastor having a double life. Most of the time it involves men who are pastors who like have a
Mhm.
family or something like that, or even there's some homosexuality involved, something like that. But I never heard of a woman pastor. I've heard of a woman pastor, but not a
Right.
woman pastor who had this double life. I find it very fascinating. The book is very, very interesting, and it's very transparent, and it's a story that not only the women should read, it's a story that men should read, because this is not how you treat your woman.
Correct.
So
I do agree.
yeah. Well, Kiva, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. I do. I love you, man. I think you are awesome, because anybody who could be as transparent as you are, not only in the pulpit but in a book, and just put it all out there, is right by me. I think you're awesome, and I really appreciate your being on Talking 360.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it so much. I hope your fans like it just as much as you do.